First things first, Jesse, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Trying to stay positive in crazy times. In COVID, the police brutality and murder, and
Right.
now looting and rioting in my neighborhood and around America, and protests, which there's a lot of good with it, and there's also a lot of destruction of innocent businesses and people infiltrating. So I didn't sleep much. There was a lot of sirens and
Okay.
a lot of noise last night. People breaking things, choppers, and all in my neighborhood. So I'm still a little half burnt out and a little anxious, but
All
I'm
right.
alive.
And then in terms of staying sane, I mean, you have the things that you do online. Does that help a little bit with these kind of, well, not just the COVID, but just to keep your mind on some positive things as well, to play some music?
Yeah, playing music and connecting with my fans and, talking to other artists, even if it's virtually, it's been good. And each week I try to come up with a show that's different than the week before. So.
All right, that's good. So let's go to Backstabbers then, one of your latest songs, because it kind of chronicles this tale of a young kid trying to make it or going through life in his adolescence. So there's a line, "All I wanted was just somewhere to begin." Where did your kind of life in music start? Because it was
I guess, playing at some school talent show when I was 11 or 12 years old, doing Kiss covers at band Kiss. Was something I was into from seeing them on the television, and they had fire and blood, and it appealed to a 10-year-old. So by the time I was 11, I got up and did one of their songs in the school. It seemed to give a rush of energy, so I continued on with it. And then by the year later, I was writing my own songs, and I played at CBGB's when I was 12 years old. They had an audition showcase for new artists playing original material. And we failed the audition, but we got a gig at Max's Kansas City out of it, which was the beginning of starting a group called Heart Attack. And,
sure.
So that was a young age. And from then I did many different bands and ended up doing my own thing, which is under my name.
Because I like what you say. Because so when you did that cover, you quite quickly decided to write your own music when you were around 11, 12. How come? Why was this? If you look back at this, what was the urge to write music of your own?
I always had it, but I didn't know how to articulate it. When I got my first guitar, I wanted to write my own songs. And me and my cousin used to make up songs and sing them when we were little kids and pretend we had albums out. And the idea of having your own song seemed really cool, but didn't know how to do it. And so I guess I listened to Elvis Costello. Well, Ramones really was the thing that was going on at the time that I heard. And they were from my town, Queens, New York. And so I started to learn their songs, and it was easy. And that showed me that I didn't have to study Van Halen, Yngwie Malmsteen, and Jimmy Page to make my own songs. And so I did. And a few chords from learning Ramones and Sex Pistols songs, I started to write primitive kind of rock and roll, punk rock stuff, So.
And then you mentioned Heart Attack, and you started, I believe, in that band when you were 12. So did it prepare you? Kind of, you've lived through quite a lot in the music industries. Did it prepare you for what kind of a life of a musician would entail?
Well, hardcore at the time was very underground music. It was independent. It there was no cell phones or internet, so it was a community around the world, and especially in the country of the U.S. So we learned how to do things that, as they say, DIY, quote unquote. That those ethics kind of stuck with me, and it was a way that make anything happen that you need to. That you just find a way to make things happen, and that was. Something that carried on into my solo career was that, there's alternate routes to do stuff, and you have to have the PMA, positive mental attitude. You got to surround yourself with good people, and you got to never stop and give in and fight all the obstacles. So that hardcore punk stuff, whatever kind of music I would play, the mentality was there.
And this might be perhaps difficult to answer, but what was the source of that positive mental attitude then?
Well, the idea that the music and being yourself, expression, individuality, that you weren't alone, that there were other groups and other people thinking that it's okay to be different and you don't have to conform, and that there's this power to celebrate life in this music by being different, and that you didn't have to be on drugs or drinking, that it could come from your essence and your soul. And that if you looked at life with a good attitude and you could visualize things and manifest them, they might not happen like some miracle Disney movie, but in time that they might. If you kept working on them, that in time they would. And if you stayed with it, stuck with your friends, dedication and, sincerity. So.
Were there ever times where, because I've been doing this work quite a long time, and I hear a lot from musicians that it isn't an easy business, and like you say, you need a lot of determination and a good work ethic. So were there ever times where you
got to love what you do,
right?
Yeah.
But were there ever times where you thought of a different life, or has this always been it?
I like films, and I like to watch movies a lot of 70s, 60s, 70s, independent film. It's something I enjoy, but I don't know. I couldn't really think of something else that I enjoy to do. I mean, I DJ here and there, all music related or art related things, but I don't know what else I would do. So I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse, but this is where I'm at.
Fair enough. And then, the next line I wanted to get into was, they stab you in the back and they want to see you crack. And is this kind of about the doubters as you are coming up and trying to kind of figure out a life for yourself in the band?
People that doubt you and people that set you up and want to be able to find a way to put you down so they could feel more powerful and right. So if they say you're crazy and those crazy ideas, or, you're not going to amount to anything unless you follow the system. So it's people that just set you up and they get power. It's just like right now in this country with the riots, and they get people to come in and break other stuff and say, oh, those people did it. And they're doing it to say, oh, those people are bad. They're coming in disguises and they're breaking stuff up and saying, oh, you're crazy, you're fucked up, you're destructive. So your message doesn't mean anything. See, black people are like this, or, young liberal people are negative, and then they split us off and can control us. So if they say you're crazy, well, you're just some crazy punk, whatever.
You're easily dismissed in that sense.
Got it. Yeah. So I'm just looking for something. I hear you. I just needed that.
No worries.
I'm still on phone here. I wanted to clean these glasses off so I could see you better, but they're all destroyed from the rioting. But I'm good. I'm back.
All right. No, so that those people who kind of want to discount you in a way, especially in the music business, and I can imagine, were you supported along your way a lot by your parents and the people in your immediate kind of surroundings?
My mother always wanted to be a singer, but she was a waitress. But she supported me, and she knew that I wasn't fucked up on drugs, and she would let us, me get out of school and go on tours and do things that a teenager wouldn't do necessarily. And my parents weren't together, so my mother had to work and try to be a mother. And so there was a lot of freedom in my house and a lot of chaos, but a lot of there was nobody watching. So, but I think my mother knew that I loved this, and she was supportive enough to know that this made me happy. And that music is a more positive thing than being some violent idiot or, whatever. She just accepted that this is what I like. And I think a lot of people in that family on my mother's side wanted to be in show business, but we just couldn't because of circumstance, or maybe they didn't put the dedication in that it takes. Like, I'm still doing, you got to live this every day. And, there's some Mondays and bad days, but there's some good rewards. One day you're living like a king and in a great fancy hotel. And the other day you're, crashing on somebody's floor. It's a little mix of everything. Well, maybe I don't crash on floors so much, but you get what I'm saying.
Of course. And what I find interesting then, was there at any moment kind of a realization for yourself that you were a musician or that you were an artist, and where it kind of transitioned from trying to get there to being it, or is it just a gradual thing that keeps on going?
Well, I think the whole time, we've been wanting to, do something. As a kid, you want to create. My first record came out, I heard it on the radio on a hardcore and college station, where I first got my first write up in an English magazine. It seemed like this was kind of real. And then when there's an audience and people are coming to hear your songs that you wrote in your little apartment, and then somebody's telling you they can relate to something you said. And I guess people, when they spend money for your stuff and they buy it or they come to the shows, then you feel like, wow, you're being appreciated. That's why the music business is so weird now. Now we can't play shows because of the pandemic. Before that, we couldn't sell records because they stopped that business. But there's a point of when you feel that somebody's listening and there's a listener, and then you want to connect with them and you feel that there's a conversation, whether it's live or even by putting records out there.
Right.
That dialogue.
There's just a thought that popped into my head, and I'm not sure if this is in any way correct or relevant or anything. But with what you just mentioned, is it because I can imagine that artists and of any kind are kind of not necessarily dependent, but they rely on audiences. They rely on kind of that positive feedback. So now that is at least minimized, do you think it's for people who are creative, this kind of COVID thing is even worse because they don't get that validation of sorts?
Yeah, I've been doing these live streams and people have been connecting and they comment and they've donated and supported some of the charities that I've gone behind and even my band and crew. But, this silence, you're like a cam girl, like on a porn channel, so you play. I hear you laughing at when I said that, but when I'm singing to the cameras in these live streams, it's great, but there's just silence afterwards, or police sirens, depending what's going on. Ambulances was for a lot of weeks, but there's not that thing. And so much about playing live for me is to connect with the audience, to give and go back and forth,
Right. And then, do you have any, it's probably speculation anyway, but do you have any idea of when you will be able again? Because I don't know the state of New York at the time.
No, we're not sure. Maybe if people open up as restaurants, we will go to some clubs and have tables and we'll charge a higher price just to make it work. Or maybe we'll do some quiet kind of special rock shows. It'd be great to get in front of people, but I don't know. It might not happen for a while. They were the first to close in America, the nightclubs and venues, and they'll be the last to open is what it sounds like. So it's a lot of holding your breath. And a lot of artists, they live week by week and day to day, hand to mouth financially, and never saw this coming. Maybe people reading science fiction might have had a better grip on this.
And with all this going on, and like you say, kind of the looting, or I don't know how to call it even, I don't know how to describe it even, but is that conducive to being creative in a way? Are you writing now, or is it kind of the other way around?
This week that I really want to write, and I have been writing, but the first few months or month and a half of this, it was trying to figure out how I was going to survive and take care of my road crew and my band. We were all supposed to be on tour promoting Sunset Kids, the album that came out in August last year, and we just had to figure out how to change our lives and set that up and then make sure we were all healthy. And so once that kind of cleared, then there's been this energy now to write. But at first, when you're just worried and you're just trying to figure out how to get through basic stuff, I did some writing, but not as much as I would have liked,
And well, you mentioned your previous record, so very quickly, that's one you made with Lucinda Williams as well.
Yeah, that's the record that's still out now. It's a single from the next record for next year, but The Sunset Kids is produced by Lucinda Williams and Tom Overby, her husband.
Okay,
that's one of my favorite records.
Well, it sounds great. I have to say. I don't know how long ago that was. Those kind of writing sessions and studio sessions, but does kind of what you did there, do remnants of that period kind of find their way into your writing now and into what will be Lust for Love?
Yeah, I believe that this period is connected to that. I mean, we learned a lot working with Lucinda and her husband. And we learned a lot about ourselves as a band and working in certain studios and the engineers we worked with. I think it'll carry over. In fact, some songs were written during that time period. But the sentiment, to me, that's to me my favorite record since my first record, Fine Art of Self-Destruction. Those two are like the bar. So you have that, and you try to, let's make something that's even better than that. And that's the challenge.
Do you put a lot of pressure on yourself?
I do, yeah. I do. I record a lot of takes. I record a lot of songs. If we're going to put out 13, I record 20. I'm pretty obsessive. I want it to be really great. And sometimes it works out that way. And sometimes you feel like it's okay and you could have did better. And it's out there forever. So we're too late.
Right. And one thing I like, especially about Sunset Kids and then the new songs for the upcoming, the next album, is that you managed to kind of capture the warmth or the heart of this is going to sound weird, but the warmth or the heart of older music that was made back in the day, but you still sound very now in a way. Does that make sense?
Well, there's songs that are written about these times and it's me today, but I grew up with a lot of appreciation for 70s music and 60s music and even some 80s, dare I say it. But, some of my favorite artists are from that more of that golden age period that I think between punk and classic rock and songwriter in the 70s, from Neil Young to The Clash. And, I love all that kind of stuff. And from Elton John to, Cheap Trick, or, there's just a period in there. So it's probably influenced, my music a lot of those records that were etched into my brain when I was at a young age.
And you mentioned the kind of the influences. What was it about, especially people like Bruce Springsteen and those more narrative style writers that appealed to you?
They're able to talk about real situations and people and dark, hard things that are painful and bleak, but with a little bit of hope and romance and love and sentimental human connection. I didn't like Bruce Springsteen until I heard Nebraska. Then I liked it all. Then it opened the door for me. But that it was on a street level, but it yet still set up little stories and characters that you could relate to. And sometimes they were like little movies, very cinematic, like or short stories.
Right, because you mentioned earlier that you are into film in a sense, and so does the music that you write have a visual quality for you as well, a cinematic quality for you as well? Do you imagine stories with these songs, or do you see pictures?
I do, sometimes it's good to have different pictures and not just make a video or something that says, this is what the house looks like, or this is what the girl looks like, or, it's good to have it be interpreted. Like when I was a kid, I interpreted things, in many ways. And I think it's important that the listener can fill in the colors and the dots and the blanks. But yeah, I definitely, and a lot of them are mostly based on real life experiences and people, even if I change the names to protect the guilty or myself.
So when I always find that interesting when you write about others. Do these people at times know that a song is about them?
Sometimes they do, and sometimes they get it wrong, but I think some people get a sense where you have, a girlfriend that you love and she realizes that you've written a song about somebody else from another time and all that stuff. So maybe it's best to not be a teller, just be not expose what they're about, just be, this is, because a lot of times, sometimes I'll write about a woman and it'll just be me, or sometimes I'll write about some character and it could be a composite of a few different people, and that happens quite often. Right.
So what was your idea going into Lust for Love then? Or did you have kind of an idea of where you wanted the album to go? Or I don't know how far along you are, but
we're about 70%. We were supposed to be done this month but being locked in and not being able to be around each other, we won't be able to finish it. But it's a little bit more autobiographical, even than Sunset Kids, with songs like Backstabbers and Todd Youth, which is the next single coming out. It's a friend of mine who we recently lost to a drug overdose was a young guitar player from my band. And, just there's a lot of stuff. So Greener Pasture is one of the songs I've been playing at the end of my live streams, which is probably the more hopeful, that, we go through all this stuff and that there's a new day and the sun comes up and you find ways to make it okay and make it worth living for and get the best out of it. The title Lust for Love is, the idea that, that's the bottom line, after all this and being cool and making money and this and that people want or whatever, power, it's really, I think deep down, if they go to the essence of it, people want to be loved, even if they say they don't.
And then I suppose you mean love in all kinds of ways, right?
Yeah.
Because not just romantic or...
Yeah, well, love could be, friends to animals, to the planet, to your family, it's not just necessarily a sexual or romantic female-male thing or male-male, whatever.
Kind of writing about your own personal struggles with these kind of big topics. Does it help you figure these things out a little bit more? Does it work in a cathartic way almost?
Yeah, it's almost like being your own therapist or something, or a Rorschach test. It's like having this. It's an outlet. That's an exorcism, a cleansing. It's a release. It definitely can help get the demons away for a while.
And then, so I don't know how much you can tell about Lust for Love, but what have you noticed about kind of thematic elements and where it is centered? Because one thing, the reason why I asked kind of whether you were creative at this point is I can imagine that with everything that is going on, do you notice the songs becoming, for instance, more based on social critique or more based on kind of the way the world is now?
I think it's about survival and appreciation of the basic things you have and the people around you. And also to really, as always, question your authorities, question your establishment, try to find ways to read between the lines to stay alive before this all becomes, some media manipulated Orwellian, dystopia. I think that there's a real feeling, obviously these things are real, these diseases and this violence against people, it's all real stuff, but there's got to be a way to try to still keep from being totally controlled because of fear and because of reading the news and staying in the house. I think people need to connect. It's always been about the community of people, of like-minded people and not like-minded people, helping each other out. And it's the human backbeat, So I think that's a big part of it. Survival, struggle, figuring out where to land after all this pain.
And it might be difficult, but have you figured out when to release the album? Because it isn't finished yet, but
yeah, it's going to be in 2021. I just don't know when at this point. Everything is trying to approach this like they do in those AA meetings, like one day at a time,
Right. But is that kind of how you're approaching everything now, just one day at a time, and whatever opportunities?
I like to look ahead. I want to know when the tours are, when we're going to play, and all that. But they don't give you any information. You don't know. They keep changing things, and this illness, this disease has got its own energy. So we don't know. You set plans. This will be open, and we'll be back together. And then there's setbacks, and then murders of men happen, women happen, and people protest and need to speak up, and that brings us physically together. It could take us more time to heal from COVID. You just don't know. There's a lot. This is one of the craziest times to be alive, but we're here right now, and this is it. Our generation never had anything like this, I don't think. And now this is the thing. This will be in the history of everything. So the trick is,
this will be our struggle in a sense.
Yeah, and it's a chance to find the way you're going to survive it, and the way you're going to act to your friends and to your family and to your community and to the planet is going to define a lot of where we go from here.
One final question. Oh, go ahead.
I say it's challenging and trying, that's all.
Yeah, fair enough. One final question then, because you mentioned working with Lucinda Williams and that it kind of showed you or taught you some elements about making music that were new to you, maybe. In terms of the sonics of the upcoming record, are you taking what of that? My English is horrible today. No, I'll cut this out. Yeah, I'm gonna ask the question again because I can't get my thoughts straight. But you work with Lucinda Williams, and you mentioned kind of you learned a lot from working with her and her husband. What of what you've learned by working with them are you taking to this next record?
I think the instincts that they had of really feeling the takes that you do with the band, not over tracking, not overplaying, to be free and just feel the beat and the soul of the basic take and let that guide you, the basic track, keeping things, warm and honest, and really doing the work on the lyrics, making sure the stories are really there and clear, and looking at that you're really telling it the way you should and getting it across. The engineer Jeff Sanoff, who's done Sunset Kids, a lot of it, he's someone we've brought along in the last few records, and I think that's part of the sound as well, having a good engineer in some of the studios, and of course my band. It's some of the same musicians, a lot of them, and maybe some others as well, but that gives a core sound of something that I felt really comfortable with from Sunset Kids and I want to expand on.
Right.
It was great having Lucinda and Tom around, and their fingerprint and their thing will definitely be still with me. I learned a lot. So.
Well, one last thought then, because you've made a lot of records over the years. Is your approach kind of trying to continue to learn with each record?
Yeah, I think you learn with each record, and you realize that how important these records are to yourself, and that, like I said, once they're out there forever, but also to not let it get away from you where it becomes something, to be able to see what's going on and enjoy the development and its own organic thing. Right.
All right, Jesse, thank you very much for your time.
So much, brother. Yeah, sorry for the delay. And,
no worries. Sorry, I was kind of stumbling over words.
You were fabulous. Stay healthy, all right?
Yeah, you too. All right.
Should be good.